Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Empyrion Galactic Survival episode 44. I'm Enigmius, and this is Omicron's moon. We're actually going to be focusing most of the episode looking at the capital vessel and what we've managed to put together on it so far since the last episode. But we ran out of iron. There's no more iron deposits left on Omicron. There's no iron to be found in the asteroid belt around Omicron. The only option we really have, unless we want to leave the system, is to come to the moon because we haven't been here before, and I decided that I would record just in case we came across anything particularly interesting. So far it's very similar to Akua's moon. It's not entirely flat but pretty close to it, lots of gray and drones and things scattered here and there. You can see there's a crashed ship on the upper left hand corner there that's just sort of coming into view now. I didn't even stop to see what was going on with that, whether there was anything on the surface that would have been worth salvaging. The drones tend to just kind of hover around things that are worth stuff. So there's a couple of drones that were nearby this crashed ship. We're pretty close to the pole. You'll see here on the right, there's the force field that prevents us from going. So I'm basically just flying around looking for iron deposits and other things that come into view, take a quick look at them as we go by. But it's the iron that we need, and then I want to get back to building the capital vessel so that we're not going to waste a ton of time on nonsense. Now, one of the things that I've finally cemented in my mind, as you can see we're going to land here, I used to do these 1 block wide exits from small vessels and hover vehicles, and I've realized now that it's just a bad idea. Because as you can see, we hop out of the cockpit, the ship is kind of on an angle because of the terrain, and we can't get out. And the whole idea with the 1 block wide things is we want to make a small opening so that bad guys can't shoot right through the door and get to us. Because the doors themselves, if we use the 3x3 doors for small vessels and hover vessels, they don't have a lot of hit points. So that was the thinking, but it's really not worth the hassle to have such a narrow opening that you basically have to cut open the back of your ship just to get out. So we find an iron deposit, we start extracting it, you can see we mine away, and then we mine some more, and then we mine a little bit more after that. We finally get to the bottom, the sun is up, and we've got this great big hole, and all the iron that came out of it, and you look in your inventory and you're like, wow, that's really not all that impressive. But we get the drones coming in and attacking our ship while we're trying to get out to defend our ship. In this case, you can see it was pretty easy to get up onto the surface and actually be able to hit the drone before it did a bunch of damage to our ship, but you'll see coming up here, it's not always that easy. In fact, sometimes it's damn near impossible unless you've already taken the time out of the mining operation to dig a tunnel back to the surface. But there's always that sort of, it's a trade-off. Do I dig the tunnel and not need it, or do I not dig the tunnel and risk needing it? You can see I started to hear the explosions. I was looking at the mini-map, I saw the drone coming in. There's a second drone coming in, you can see it on the outer ring of the mini-map, and now we have to dig the ramp from basically the bottom of this pit up to the surface so that we can get out, and the whole while we can hear the explosions, and they're all aimed at our little vessel. If they destroy the core, the cockpit, or there's one other thing, if they start destroying the ammunition containers and they start exploding inside the cabin, we could end up basically stuck on the moon until we suicide back down to Omicron. So it's not an ideal situation. When we finally get out, we realize it's a pair of rocket drones having their way with our ship. You can see we'll come around. Apparently, it's good to have a little bit of clarity. Apparently, NPC ships will always aim for your core, and anything that happens to be in the way is what's going to be hit. So we've lost some armor on the outside there. They were fairly close to getting to the inside where the core is, but we survived. And that's kind of the thing, is the ship survived. We've learned a few things, but check this out. This is the first and final test of our cockpit scope system, using the orientation of the guns in a particular pattern around your line of sight out of the ship from the cockpit to get good accurate shots with the static weapons that you can't rotate around on a turret, and it works really, really well. So we've already got that system set up on our new capital vessel for our pulse lasers. I'm looking forward to testing that out. But just having it, we've had it in place for so long, and I've never actually gotten around to testing it. And the test was very, very promising. So we're going to continue using it until maybe we'll find a situation that's very important that doesn't work at all. Now, this was kind of fun. We're obviously coming up on the planet from a distance, and I'm trying to get as close as I possibly can to our base without having to fly around on the planet's surface any more than is absolutely necessary. And you can see as we get closer, things are kind of doing the pop-in bit. They're getting a little bit more detailed from a distance, and then you get close, and then they get a little more detailed. And with basically a straight line, we've come up on our base and are getting ready to land. That was probably the best landing approach that I've ever done in the game so far. But it just comes from recognizing where the landmarks are in relation to the poles, because sometimes the shapes don't necessarily translate perfectly, but when you get down to it, it's close enough. So now we're going to take a look at the progress that we've made on the capital vessel, because there's been quite a bit of it. It's still a little ways from being done, but we're almost to the point where we can zip it around for a test run and see if it's got enough thrusters and enough RCS and all those other things, having made it safely back with our small vessel and all the iron that we could find. So let's go take a look. And that brings us here to our work in progress capital vessel. There's been a fair amount of progress since the last episode. Obviously, a lot of the time that I could have spent building was spent gathering sathium and iron, but we still managed to make some notable progress, specifically in getting the central structure of the ship is basically buttoned up. I'm not saying it's done necessarily, but for all intents and purposes, everything that I want in there is in there, and it's all closed up. There's no openings that we haven't intended in the final design of the ship that are remaining. So we can move on to the hangar pods, which are these things to either side. You can see one is basically the same thing on the other side. This is one of the biggest upgrades over our capital vessel over there. The capital vessel over there suffered from two major shortcomings with the hangars. One, the hangar doors were too small, and two, the hangar bays were too small, and that made it kind of a pain. It wasn't too bad for our small vessel getting in and out because it was kind of cigar-shaped to a certain extent, but for our hover vessel, it was a serious pain in the butt. So we've used a larger hangar door. We've got more space to get in and out. We've got more space to store the ship safely without having to worry about getting jammed in and taking 10 minutes to back out of the hangar just because of the way everything gets wedged in so tight. It won't take too much longer to button these guys up, and then the front portion of the a little bit of flicker there. The front portion of the hangar pods are going to be the reverse and lateral thrusters. So the thrusters that fire to slow us down when we're moving forward, and the thrusters that we use to move us side to side will be part of the hangar pods. And then we'll close them all up, and we'll try and make it look nice and tidy, and then we'll paint it all up. And then the last thing we're going to do is add the upper pod that's going to be all of the farming area. We're going to grow all the stuff that we need on extended journeys so that we don't have to stress out over running out of food. And we have already the machines inside that we need to process and store the kinds of things that we would be growing. So that's, I mean, there's only so much you can do when you run out of everything at the same time. What we can do, though, is we're going to run over to the other side, and we'll take a look at the back side of the ship, because I wanted to put some detail into it in the sense that it looks like it's complete. It's not just an open box with thrusters. And I wanted to do it in a way that I would be happy with now, so that I can kind of forget about it and focus on other things. We're going to have to use a drone for this because it's just a little bit too awkward. There's another object in the spawn area. Oh, I had my head tilted back. They changed a bunch of things in the last patch. And one of them was the drone being able to spawn it in the blocks behind you, depending on where your head was. So you can see here the thrusters are actually recessed quite a ways back into the hull of the ship. And I'm okay with that. Like I say, so many of my builds, recessing things means that it's harder for the bad guys to hit, because you have to have a more specific angle of attack if you actually want to be able to hit them. So these guys are recessed in a way that they're a little bit harder to hit, but also it's not interfering with the space that we have inside the ship, because it's pretty roomy in there even after we put the thrusters this far back. So we've got a little bit of use of the rounded blocks just to kind of break things up, the angularity, and it's in a way that it's just very, very subtle. It doesn't stand out unless you look at it for a few seconds and you say, hey, there's something going on there that's a little bit easier on the eyes than all this angular stuff. And you can start to get a look at the hangars from the backside as well, what they're going to look like when they've got the hangar pods. There will be ramps on both of the hangars so that we can get hover vessels into them. If that's all we've got to load into them as hover vessels, we'll still be able to accommodate that on both sides. And mostly just structural additions remain, closing things in and getting those reverse and lateral thrusters in place. And then it's really, beyond that point, it's just a case of guns. We're going to have to mount a lot of guns, paint, texturing, and trying to make it look the way that we want it to look, and have the firepower that we want it to have. We come up here, there was a patch in the last day or so that made a bunch of changes to help with performance. All of the glass is gone from the RCS units, and it's because of jerks like me. Just stack a bunch of them together, and then the transparency is too much. It's too hard for the game to render properly, and it causes issues with stutter and lag spikes and things like that. So yay, I can add more. I was actually starting to have pretty serious issues with lag spikes with the ship with building. Apparently there were also issues related to the placement of blocks, so we're going to test that out a little bit later today. We've got our constructors in place with 4 advanced constructors. We've got 2 food processors. And we've still got room all over the damn place. We got room over here, we got room over here, up against this wall, and all kinds of room at the back that we can add more machines, more storage, whatever we need. So we're in good shape. By the next episode, we should have the preliminary version of this ship ready for a shakedown, and I think what we'll do is we'll take it back to Akua. I want to pick up some stuff that we left in our base there, specifically fiber, because there's quite a bit there. And I also want to see if we can't find a couple of drones and things that we can test the pulse lasers on. See what's going on there. I know there's some iron deposits that we didn't tap on Akua that are remaining that we can probably hit up, and we'll probably need them by that point. And promethium as well. We can never have too much promethium. So while we're there, we may just make an outing of it and sort of clean up as much of the landscape as we can. Get as many resources off of Akua as possible, and then every once in a while we'll just go back to gather fiber, I guess, is all that we'll be able to use it for. So that's what I've been working on. A lot of resource gathering kind of cut into the build time, but we still managed to get a lot done. We're going to have to get some lights in here, I can tell already. I've got some made, but not enough. And then down here, we've got the door to the hangars. We've got our stuff that we don't have to deal with. This is the empty section that's just basically space between the 2 different layers of armor. And down on the deck, I'll be happy to get rid of these thrusters and any of the other ones. This one right here, but we can't get rid of those until we get them into the hangar pods to replace the functionality. And then we have to get landing gears and probably do some detailing on the underside here, just so it's not so flat. We'll do a little bit of sculpting and add a few pointless details that just make things look a little bit better. So I hope you like what you're seeing so far. I apologize if you're hoping to see more, but as I've explained ad nauseum, there were reasons. And the next episode, we're going to take a look at what we've got done since this episode, which will be a little bit more significant, and hopefully we'll have this thing up in the air and we can get a feel for its size. We're going to bring it up close to our other capital vessels so that we can do a side-by-side comparison. And then once that's done and this guy is vetted as a viable capital vessel, we're going to dismantle the other one because we need the materials. So if you want to be notified when I have future episodes doing all these things, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media are always in the information section below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.